Highlights on the microbiology of Chlamydiae. Chlamydiae are obligate intracellular parasites. So when infect a tissue, they must be inside the cell. They can't be outside the cell to cause a disease. And in addition, it's an obligate pathogen, which means it's not commensal. It can't be a commensal bacteria. It must be, once present, it causes disease. It has a cell envelope structure and it does not contain peptidoglycan. So bacteria have peptidoglycan in the cell wall structure, and peptidoglycan is the site of action of some antibiotics like penicillins. So if we don't have peptidoglycans in the chlamydial cell wall, we can't give penicillin. Penicillin will not do anything to chlamydia. So here, from the first line, we have two pieces of information that concern our choice of antibiotics. We need an antibiotic that goes inside the cell because the organism Chlamydia is intracellular, and we need an antibiotic that acts by another way rather than damaging peptidoglycan. So penicillin does not work on Chlamydia because there are no peptidoglycans, and aminoglycosides do not enter the cells, so they will not work against Chlamydia because Chlamydia are obligate intracellular parasites. The growth cycle of Chlamydia, it shows two stages: the elementary body stage, which is the infective form, and it can be present freely in the environment, but it's not spore forming, so it can't live entirely freely. And reticulate body, which is the active form, and it's a non-infective form. This is a form present inside the cells during the active disease. Chlamydia have at least 9 species, and at least 2 of them are primarily human pathogens. This includes the Chlamydia trachomatis and includes the Chlamydia pneumoniae. However, some other Chlamydia species might affect the human as well, like a disease called psittacosis. But this is not a primary human pathogen. We'll speak about the Chlamydia trachomatis and the Chlamydia pneumoniae. So Chlamydia pneumoniae causes pneumonia, and it's #1 cause of community-acquired bacterial pneumonia. Chlamydia trachomatis causes several other diseases as per its serovar or its biovar. So Chlamydia trachomatis has several biovars. It has serological types A, B, and C, and has biological types D to K, and it has the LGV. The ABC and DK, we can call them non-LGV. LGV is lymphogranuloma venereum. So we have the lymphogranuloma venereum variant and the non-lymphogranuloma venereum variant. A, B, and C cause trachoma, which is an ocular infection. D and K cause non-lymphogranuloma venereum genital infection, and lymphogranuloma venereum cause lymphogranuloma venereum disease or infection. The DNA of Chlamydiae is a short genome or a small genome. It contains around 1 million base pair, which is a small genome for a bacteria. It also has a plasmid, but the function of the plasmid is not entirely understood or known. So we have 1 million base pair as genetic material, and we have plasmids of unknown function. Chlamydiae show genetic material conservation. They are replicating on their own inside the cells in intranuclear vacuoles, so they are not exposed to other bacterial genomes. They are not acquiring resistance to antibiotics easily. The incubation period is usually 5 to 10 days. In lymphogranuloma venereum might reach up to 30 days. In genital infection by D to K biovars might take up to 15 days. Chlamydia trachomatis, and here we know that Chlamydia trachomatis includes the ABC, primarily affecting the eyes, D2K, non-lymphogranuloma venereum, genital infection, and the lymphogranuloma venereum. They are the most common sexually transmitted bacteria, and they are a very common cause of blindness, as mentioned by the WHO website. So genital infections, as we know, primarily caused by biovars from D to K, and they might affect men or women. In men and women, it's usually of younger age population. So in men, it might cause urethritis, and it's accounting for 70% of cases of epididymitis. However, it does not lead to infertility in men. In contrast to women, where it might cause fertility very easily. Infertility, sorry. So in women, it primarily affects the columnar epithelium of the endocervix. Chlamydia can't infect the squamous epithelium of the vagina. So from the endocervix, it can spread to cause urethritis, or it might spread to the uterus and cause endometritis, fallopian tube, and here it causes adhesions, and this is the cause of infertility in women. It might even spread to the peritoneum and cause inflammatory pelvic disease, or go to the peritoneum around the liver and cause peritonitis here in this area, which becomes very similar to cholecystitis. And this is a diagnostic challenge. We will come to this soon. Neonatal infections. Babies might be infected while passing through the birth canal. They usually acquire conjunctivitis inflammation of the conjunctiva, they might acquire pneumonia. Inclusion conjunctivitis, we might call this paratrachoma. So it's ocular infection caused by the D2K bivalves. It's not typical trachoma, it's a paratrachoma. So there will be follicular conjunctivitis. And the last thing to consider is what's called Reiter syndrome. Reiter syndrome is a triad of urethritis, conjunctivitis, not trachoma, paratrachoma, and seronegative arthritis. So in this arthritis, you can't isolate chlamydia from the joints, but Reiter syndrome is very sensitive to tetracycline, which is the antibiotic of choice in chlamydia. The lymphogranuloma venereum bivar causes lymphogranuloma venereum, which passes into 3 stages. The primary stage, which is a small nodule, might be ulcerating and it's painless. So the primary stage might pass unnoticed. It might not be before the secondary stage, when the patient acquires lymphadenopathy. And in this case, in this stage, there is fever and it's painful. The lymphadenopathy is painful. The tertiary stage, or the late stage, consists of fibrosis, elephantiasis due to lymphatic obstruction of the genitalia, elephantiasis of the genitalia. And here we come to the pathophysiology. As what was mentioned here, initially there is acute purulent inflammation, and then followed by subepithelial follicular aggregation and fibrosis and strictures. So this is a chronic stage, and this is the pathophysiology mentioned here in the tertiary stage. Fibrosis of the lymphatic channels, and elephantiasis of genitalia. Regarding the choice of antibiotic, as we have mentioned earlier, we can't choose penicillin because penicillin acts on peptidoglycan and chlamydia lack peptidoglycan in their cell wall. We can't choose aminoglycosides because they don't enter the cell, and chlamydia are obligate intracellular parasites. So the antibiotic of choice is either tetracycline group or the macrolide group.